So y'all know the best thing about year-end lists are recreating or recounting your favorite moments of the entirety of that year, whether it be your favorite tracks, your honorable mentions, having a fun time discussing the worst that came out that year. But most people seem to enjoy the best moments in terms of albums, so that's what we're going to talk about today. You're probably seeing this on a Friday again. As always, disclaimer: if your album did not make the cut, it's not on my list. That's tough titties. I don't care, you know? I wasn't thinking about you when I made this list. I was thinking about me. Number 40, it's a little unconventional because I have one rapper taking up 2 album spots for just one number. Chris Crack with Crackheads Live Longer Than Vegans and Never Hated, I Just Waited. He dropped a ton of material in the year 2019. He's been on a run. The dude's pretty funny. I like what he says in his music. Sometimes it's really funny. Other times it feels like a troll. Other times it feels like something you say for shock value, but you put it under the guise of shock value and you actually secretly mean it. He embodies kind of the spirit of all jokes contain something true. And I love the sound that the record has. It's mixing a ton of lo-fi material, crackling old soul samples and R&B. As big of an L that Lizzo took this year, her name starts with an L. See, I'm really on my shit. Despite so many people hating her this year and the huge controversies around her, though they don't warrant the amount of hate she's getting by any means. Cause I Love You is still a very theatrical album. It feels like a live show. It feels like a stage play. It's very flamboyant. It's over dramatic, but it's very entertaining. Her voice is larger than life, and no, I don't mean that as a joke. I mean she has a large presence over the mic. I mean, she dominates. She really does. She's got a really strong presence. At number 38, we've got Eve from Rapsody. Really like this album. I love the themes here: black empowerment, black womanhood, embracing black beauty, keeping that at the forefront of your mind as a black woman. Even as a black man, I felt empowered listening to this, so definitely give it a listen. 37 is Little Brother, May the Lord Watch. Not my favorite project from them, but could have probably released anything and I would have probably said it was good just because it's been so long. But still, listen to it because it's good. It's a really good project. Next time y'all make an album, you better include Ninth Wonder. Number 36, I got Moodymann with Sinner. And this is an album that I will say doesn't have to try to be great, it just is. 35 is Baby Keem, Die For My Bitch. This album actually wasn't supposed to make this top 40 list, but the more I keep listening to it, it's just so much fun. He's got such a young, bright voice. Despite the slight Kendrick Lamar influence on some songs, I understand and realize the relation there as well. I can't help but think that he's just making music that he really likes, and it's so wholesome, despite it being so raunchy at some moments. Number 34, I've got Marika Hackman with Any Human Friend. I love the way her voice lends itself to the choruses all over this album. There are random moments of synths everywhere. Her lyrics are bold and confident and unforgiving and unapologetic, and I like the way it mixes together on this record. Number 33 is Sampha the Great with The Return. Love this album. It's all about her return to form and reconnecting with her spirit. 32 is Sudan, Archives with Athena. I'm so happy she released this year. I was really worried. I really enjoyed her Sync EP from last year. Really excited that she dropped this one. Strings all over the place, gorgeously mixing and fusing themselves with her own vocals. She sounds so grand. The tracks on here that do sound more modern are really smoky, hazy sometimes, and really sensual and sexy. She did a great job. Rico Nasty and Kenny Beats team up for Anger Management, which is an album pretty much just about Rico Nasty having temper tantrums and learning to control them, getting them under wraps, and giving others advice on how to deal with their anger. Steve Gunn with The Unseen In Between is a beautiful tale of someone lost trying to find their way. The more I listen to this record, the more emotional I kind of get over it because it seems so lost and also like it knows what it has to do at the same time. Almost like there's a decision to be made, but I'm reluctant to make it because it means accepting something that I might not want to accept. The guitars all over the album are a beautiful backdrop too though. Meg Thee Stallion with Fever. I really like this mixtape. He tackles this project with a ton of authority, which fuels her confidence all over the record, making her a force to be reckoned with the entire time. Despite the fact that her lyricism isn't top notch, you can't help but take her seriously with everything that she says. I knew Westside Gunn with Flygod is an awesome god would give me something this year, and I was not disappointed. A lot of my love for this project comes from the samples that were chosen as the backdrops, because they are fantastic. The loops on this one are crazy. Jamila Woods with Legacy, a similar tone and project to Rhapsody's Eve, but here it's tackled with a much more vibrant atmosphere, much more soul, and a lot of singing, and done beautifully at that. 26's Injury Reserve's self-titled, and I think they really honed in on everything that made them great, even going as far as to teach you how to make a rap song and make it catchy. Why wasn't that song long? 25 is Earth Gang with Mirrorland. I loved this project, and it grew on me even more than it did my initial time reviewing it. Very solid listen. Earth Gang is really making a name for themselves beyond just being a part of Dreamville and being influenced by Outkast. They've really honed in on their own identity and are developing a sound that's much more unique than people give them credit for, and I definitely think they deserve everything that they're getting this year. Solange with When I Get Home was a beautiful project about patience, love, a homage to Houston, Black beauty, Black appreciation. Anderson .Paak with Ventura takes it back and simplifies things and makes them sound so good. He also utilizes his voice as a rapper at some moments on this record. Songs like Make It Better to King James. His soul is just all over it. Caroline Polachek with Pang is what you get when you put an angel inside of a computer and send it to Mars. Most of this project is tuned so perfectly, it's hard to believe it was done by a human. 22 is Jessica Pratt with Quiet Signs. I love this album, I really do. It's like floating on a pillow that was made by an extraterrestrial. Never gets uncomfortable. In the background, her voice is everywhere but far away at the same time, it feels. Never overbearing, uncomfortable, or invasive. Just far away enough not to make you uncomfortable, but close enough to keep you comforted at the same time. Number 20, I got Danny Brown with You Know What I'm Saying. He's so mature and well put together on this album, and he clearly is having a lot of fun. Number 19 is Your Old Droog with It Wasn't Even Close. Droog really stepped it up for this one. If I could describe this album in any better of a way, it's like going to a barber, but you don't have to tell him what you want at all. He just knows. There's a connection that he has to the beats on this project that make it such a consistent listen. He's got guests that compliment him well on this project as well, like Rock Marciano, Lil Ugly Mane, MF Doom. Number 18 is Brockhampton with Ginger, which is probably their most mature album yet. Really enjoyed it from start to finish, and there are a lot of catchy songs here, a lot of heartfelt ones too, but most importantly, growth and maturity. Despite everything that they've been toting for the past couple of years since their release. If Saturation made you happy to be a fan, you probably grew with them over time, and you should be happy to see the progress that they've made with Ginger. Number 17 is Benny the Butcher with The Plugs I Met. Benny the Butcher said a while ago that he would be making an album about the plugs he met, and he did just that. No matter what setting I'm in, he always puts the setting in a Goodfellas atmosphere, but music format. I'm watching a film here, and it just keeps getting better. Me Frati with Pierre Sobre La Tierra is an album that really reconnected me to the earth. It's beautiful ambient music. It truly is. Earlier this year, I don't really express when I'm having difficulty personally, and a lot of people do know that I sometimes have trouble sleeping soundly through the night, and I always have to either sleep with a window open, even in the wintertime, or a fan on. It's really hard for me to go to sleep. I don't know why. I managed to stumble across this album, thank God, and was able to put myself in a space that was relaxing enough for me to get comfortable, at least before I got to the point where I was about to go to sleep. Have you ever seen those cans of air, you know, that they get from the mountains and they sell them? A lot of the time they sell them in Japan. This is what would happen if you bought a can and turned it into music. This album could draw an introvert into comfortably socializing with the earth. Just like nature does from time to time, you are subject to random mood swings. You feel comforted knowing that it's okay because you've seen this before in life. And especially when it's December 21st and in Michigan there is no snow and it's 51 degrees where climate change is ruining everything. This album is definitely a sight for sore eyes. Quelle Chris with guns, blunt, unapologetic, and amazing rapper. That's it. Michael Kiwanuka with Self-Titled. I loved it. Beautiful soul record, cinematic soul at its finest. At number 13, I got Tyler the Creator with Igor, a lovely story about a person who seems emotionless, traversing through the world, finally finding love and not really knowing how to respond to it. I think the way he captures how he feels musically and vocally on this album is pretty heartfelt, and it's pretty enjoyable, so check it out if you haven't. I don't know how you haven't, but yeah. FKA from Shura is a lovely synth pop record that captures some slight vocal influences from Janet Jackson, also fuses it with some lovely spaciness, soft, beautiful vocals echoing that do nothing but multiply as the choruses play on. Very delicate love story. Billy Woods teams up with producer Kenny Siegel with Hiding Places, and despite the fact that it's good, it's got me really concerned. And I don't know if it's the massive edge that he's given to this project or the lack of silver lining that it seems to have, but I feel the more and more he raps, the further and further he gets away from everybody who's listening to his music right now. And that could be intentional, but he really seems to go deeper and deeper and deeper and further and further and further into another space, going away from everyone who's listening to him right now until the point where we might not ever hear from him again. He is a non-conformist, and I love that about him. Little Simz with Gray Area at number 10. Not only does she make a statement for female rappers, but she makes a statement for UK rappers at the exact same time. And of course, being young, black, having a ton of intelligence and a ton of rap skill, all of it falls into this beauty that is Gray Area. Her personality, ideas, concern, annoyances, and things that make her tick all show up in this project, giving this record a personality that wasn't apparent on her previous. Slow Tie with Nothing Great About Britain at number 9. He really impressed me here. I did not expect him to entertainingly tell me what's so terrible about where he's from. Sometimes with a ton of sarcasm, others with a ton of wit, others with a ton of anger, but always with a ton of energy and a lot of charisma. It's refreshing to have rappers that have conflicts and troubles that exist beyond not having enough money. Something that affects everyone in their community or everyone in their area as a whole. Which leads me to my next favorite album of the year, MAVI with Let the Sun Talk. I feel like I'm listening to my brother. I think MAVI on this album is so interested in making sure the world has the option of looking through a black lens. Not so concerned with getting an idea, exploring that idea, and then escaping with that idea, but letting other people in on the knowledge that he's received and trying to, in a non-condescending way, give them the tools needed for everyone, not just himself, to come up as a group. Don't let the tone of this record fool you, despite it being so reminiscent to artists like Earl Sweatshirt and Mike. It's still forward thinking, it's still very hopeful, and it's still wholesome. Sometimes beautifully accompanied by some soul samples. He does a great job at explaining why camaraderie in the black community is so important. Number 7 is Clipping with There Existed an Addiction to Blood. Never have I heard someone in a way that isn't meant to jump scare you, explain to you the actual terrors that life has to offer. Very raw, eye-opening, unpopular opinion based, and sometimes quite pessimistic take on life. The beautiful thing about the album though is how menacing it becomes once you add instruments that are so menacing behind them. Because when you realize if you take the instrumentals from this record away, it's actually the life that we all live, but maybe not noticing or privy to because of the lack of instrumental disturbing. Number 6, I've got FKA Twigs with Magdalene. And I'll be honest with you, she made me really sad on this album. And only because you just kind of want to embrace her or hug her or comfort her, but you're afraid to because if you touch her, she might break. She's so brittle and delicate and just so soft toned on this entire record. You feel like any subtle shift or slight move in your momentum will completely shatter her foundation. Unlike many people though, she's vulnerable enough on the record to let you know exactly where she's at mentally and physically. She's an addict to what she defines as love, and her body is literally going through withdrawals. Unfortunately for her, there's no rehabilitation for it. It's just waiting. The only value she's given herself to this record and acknowledged it is the love that she's open to giving to someone, not necessarily the love that she has for herself. To be so vulnerable as to admit that for the entirety of this record so beautifully and openly takes a lot of guts, and I appreciate her for that. Next is Slauson Malone, A Quiet Farewell, 2016 to 2018. This album is like a safari. This album is like a musical museum. If this were a painting on a wall, there's so much to look at. Purple and red streaks are the hip hop and rap portions on the painting. The jazz is the yellow consistent streak. The glitchiness are the zigzag blues. The drone is illustrated by an overarching black. But all of it comes together on the piece, on the painting so well. Despite so much happening on the canvas, as huge as it is, and these colors invoking so many different emotions, it all fits on the same page. Sometimes it's a tight fit, but it fits. At number 4, I've got Durand Jones and the Indications with American Love Call. I love this album so much, evoking memories within me that I don't even remember having. Whether you're old or young, the album does a great job of making you feel experience. And though the album doesn't do too much with this 70s soul aesthetic that it has, the sound that it's using, it doesn't ruin it. It makes it as good as the time that it's from, without doing too much to tamper with it. It doesn't ruin the experience by trying to modernize itself. It knows what's so great about 70s soul, captures that, and reuses it. The raw emotion that this album drew out of me though is kind of insane. At number 3, I've got Freddie Gibbs and Madlib with their album Bandana, and it grew on me even more than it did in my initial review. And it's getting harder and harder as the days progress to just confidently say that Pinata is the better record. Now, it's still ahead by just a bit, but the more time I give this thing, it's aging pretty well. A part of me wants Madlib to have been a bit more involved in this one. I do still like that he took a bit more of a back seat and let Freddie Gibbs steal more of the show, still giving him enough of a challenge that Freddie Gibbs would have to alter his rap style every now and again to make the song entertaining. I mean, he is the star of the show, but the chemistry that they have together on these tracks, you couldn't get from any other producer. Crime Pays to Palm Olive to Half Main, Half Cocaine to Flat Tummy Tea, all of it is fantastic. Number 2 is Wise Blood, Titanic Rising. This album is a little deceiving. Mute the vocals and you'll swear somebody's being born again. Melody makes a point, sing sometimes filled with sorrow, sometimes acknowledging a loss of control, sometimes blatantly contradicting her hope in acknowledgement of her reality. It's so beautiful when you get an artist that is so confident within their vocals that they don't have to do many gymnastics vocally to impress you. I say the album can be somewhat deceiving because of how realistic and grounded her lyrics tend to be, making you feel like she makes a ton of sense, but you realize she's running or swimming from something and you don't know what it is, but it makes you want to follow her because she makes so much sense lyrically. She's speaking from a realistic point of view. It's only after you follow her that you realize what she was running from, which is what catches up with you and swallows you up completely in this whirlpool of sound. In a lot of ways, I'm faced with the question of whether or not to follow the lead singer and allow her realistic point of view in a lot of ways to take me on a voyage, leading me to an unknown destination. And if we fail on our voyage, do I get swallowed up by these beautiful slow building instrumentals? Whichever you decide, the listen can make you feel very cosmic, like you're a part of something much bigger. You just don't really want to acknowledge it, because acknowledging that you're a part of something so grand and vast and huge would unintentionally put yourself on a pedestal, which would go against everything that life has taught you. Nothing but endless thoughts appear when I think about this record. Don't let that stop you from listening to it though, because it's beautiful. And my album of the year, number 1, most of you probably guessed it, bitch, you guessed it, is JPEG Mafia's All My Heroes Are Cornballs. You knew? I don't care if you knew. Delete your comment. I don't have much to say about this record. I mean, I explained everything that I loved about it in the initial review for it. I just can't believe how it's aged like Nia Long. I stopped listening to this album probably mid-October, and then came back to it again a couple days ago, and it's just as good, if not better, than when I first reviewed it. Discovering himself through methods of R&B, glitch hop, abstract vaporwave, and the occasional lo-fi over beats that aren't nearly as fast or abrasive to make the listen a lot more comforting, as he sits you as a child aside him, telling you, you are going to grow up to be a disappointment, but it's okay because I'll love you anyway. The listen can probably be a bit jarring for people that don't associate with Peggy's personality type too frequently, as his personality and the things that he says can sometimes jump very effortlessly from serious to satire. But all that'll kind of fade as you realize that the album is more of an attempt at just normalizing being a human being, accepting faults, weaknesses, and inevitable failures, being okay with them, moving on, and continuing regardless of the inevitable mistakes and obstacles that are going to come your way. And to not be a bitch at the same time and fight them head on. But that's been my albums of the year 2019. It's been a fantastic year for music, for me personally. Though not huge when it comes to artists releasing in the mainstream vein, when it came to music that was dropping that wasn't at the top of everybody's radar, they really showed out. They showed their ass. I want to thank you guys for the support. Thank you for watching. Let me know what your favorite albums are in the comment section down below. I'm always interested to hear new music. And I'll see y'all next time, man. Seriously. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I'll see y'all. Peace.